Most people think the One Ring was powerful because it could make someone invisible. But that was only the surface. The real power of the One Ring was much darker than that. It was not just a magic object. It was not just a weapon. And it was not just a piece of jewelry that Sauron happened to lose. The One Ring was powerful because Sauron placed a major part of his own strength, will, and domination into it. That is what made it so dangerous. When Sauron created the One Ring, he was not simply making another ring of power. He was making the Master Ring, the one ring that could rule the others. The elves had their rings, the dwarves had theirs, men had theirs. But Sauron wanted one ring that could control them all. That is why the famous line matters so much. One ring to rule them all. That was not just poetry. That was the purpose of the ring. Sauron wanted to dominate the minds and wills of the people who wore the other rings of power. He did not want to simply conquer Middle-earth with armies. He wanted control. He wanted obedience. He wanted the free peoples of Middle-earth to bend to his will. And the One Ring was designed for that purpose. But here is where it becomes even more interesting. The ring was powerful because it carried Sauron's own nature, his pride, his hunger for control, his desire to dominate, his refusal to let anything exist freely outside of his command. That is why the ring corrupts people. It does not usually corrupt them by saying, "Be evil." It corrupts them by using what they already want. That is what makes it so dangerous. Boromir did not want the ring because he saw himself as a villain. He wanted it because he believed it could save Gondor. He thought it could be used as a weapon against Sauron. And that is exactly how the ring works. It twists good intentions. It takes courage and turns it into pride. It takes love and turns it into possession. It takes fear and turns it into desperation. The ring does not need to make everyone evil immediately. It only needs to convince them that they should use it. Just once. For the right reason. For the greater good. That is the trap. Even Gandalf refuses to take the ring. And that is important. Gandalf was wise. He was powerful. He understood evil better than most people in Middle-earth. But even he knew that if he took the ring, he would not use it safely. He would try to use it to do good. But through him, the ring would become even more terrible. Because power does not stop being dangerous just because a good person holds it. That is one of the deepest ideas in The Lord of the Rings. The ring cannot simply be used correctly. It cannot be controlled like a normal weapon. It always works toward domination. That is why the mission was not to use the ring. The mission was to destroy it. And this is why Frodo's burden was so serious. Frodo was not just carrying a dangerous object. He was carrying the concentrated will of Sauron. Every step toward Mordor made the ring heavier. Not just physically, but spiritually. The closer Frodo got to Mount Doom, the stronger the ring's pull became. Because it was getting closer to the place where it was made. Closer to its master. Closer to the heart of Sauron's power. That is why Frodo struggles so much at the end. Some people look at the ending and say, Frodo failed. But that misses the point. The ring was almost impossible to resist at the place of its creation. At Mount Doom, the ring's power was at its greatest. Frodo had carried it farther than anyone else could have. But in the final moment, the ring still claimed him. That shows how powerful it really was. It was not weak. It was not just a cursed object. It was a piece of Sauron's own power, fighting to survive. And that also explains something else. Why did Sauron fall when the ring was destroyed? Because he had tied so much of himself to it. The ring made him stronger, but it also made him vulnerable. As long as the ring existed, Sauron could return. Even after losing his physical form, his spirit endured. But once the ring was destroyed, the power he had placed inside it was gone forever. He could no longer rebuild himself. He could no longer rise again in the same way. That is what made the ring both his greatest weapon and his greatest mistake. Sauron believed power could make him untouchable. But by placing so much of himself into the ring, he created the one thing that could destroy him. And that is why the One Ring is one of the most powerful objects in fantasy. Not because it shoots fire, not because it makes someone invisible, not because it gives the wearer simple strength, but because it attacks the will. It tempts, it corrupts, it dominates. It takes what someone desires and twists it until they become trapped by it. The One Ring was powerful because it was not just made by Sauron. In a way, it was Sauron. His ambition, his control, his pride, his darkness, all placed into one small golden ring. And that is why destroying it was the only way Middle-earth could be free. Not because the ring was just dangerous, but because as long as the ring survived, Sauron survived with it. So the real question is this. If Gandalf, Boromir, and even Frodo could be tempted by the ring, who in Middle-earth could have actually resisted it? Follow Rooted for more simple Middle-earth questions explained.